What's up, guys? I'm Chad Barnes, and welcome to the channel. Here, it's all about real car talk, from simple fixes to smart driving tips and keeping your ride in top shape. If that sounds good to you, go ahead and give the video a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button and make sure you watch all the way through. There's a lot of good stuff coming. Let's get to it.
How does it work? To begin with, let's briefly remind you where all these accident stories and terrible repairs come from in the reports. They appear either from traffic police databases or from insurance companies that have calculated the cost of repairs. It is easier to use the traffic police databases. There is just a fixation and an insignificant inscription like light damage or collision with a vehicle. What they mean exactly, it is difficult to understand. Collision with a standing vehicle can mean both a scuff on the bumper, which is not always visible to the eye, and a car that was wrecked after driving into a KMZ truck standing on the side of the road. Therefore, these records are not very informative, although in some cases there is a scheme of damage which gives the opportunity to learn something more specific. Maybe there was a touch with the corner of the bumper, and maybe there is damage on the whole side of the car with possibly gone geometry of the body. Mark on the damage to the geometry is if the accident was really serious. Of course, it's better if the accident history is clean, and even without buying the report, you can see that in its free version. This field is marked with a green check mark. And if it is not, then we look at the repair history. And this is where insurers and car services come into the picture. There is more important information here, but it needs to be interpreted correctly. It is very important to understand one thing: calculating the cost of repair and repair are different things. In those days, when after an accident the injured party received money and not an imposed repair, car owners could drive around the city for a long time, choosing a service where the repair would be cheaper. They were calculated, the owners were not satisfied with the cost and went to look for another service. And this led to the fact that one repair could have several calculations of its cost in the report. Therefore, it is necessary to look not only at the fact of calculation, but also at its nuances, the list of works and parts, and the date of the calculation. The probability that 3 times in 2 weeks painted the same trunk lid with the replacement of the same lining is very small. And in that case there would be 3 in the history of repair cost calculations, which greatly spoils the impression of the car. And the actual repair is 1. There may have been a minor scratch removed, which is not serious at all. So don't get frustrated ahead of time, and instead, you should look into all the details. A small thing, but a nice thing: insurance is not only MTPL, but also hull insurance. And there is a very significant difference between them. Why is there often no accidents in the report, but there is body repair or a calculation of its cost? Because new cars were often bought on credit and voluntarily and compulsorily insured by hull insurance. For repair under such insurance the certificate of accident is not needed, but many people wanted to take revenge for this overpayment imposed when buying a car. And many people painted everything they could get their hands on under hull insurance. Especially in the last year of compulsory insurance. The cars of such owners can be repainted almost everywhere just because of some scratches that they wanted to remove out of principle. Of course, this is overkill. It will be hard to sell such a car later. But if there is no accident in the report, but there is repainting of the bumper, then almost always it was painted only for aesthetic reasons and under hull insurance. However, this does not invalidate the rule to check all iron with a thickness gauge. And another weakness of those insured under hull insurance is the tendency to replace windshields. They could be replaced after the first chip, and more than once. Therefore, if the car had such insurance, which can also be seen in the report, and it has a non-original windshield, it is not terrible either. Those times when the originality of the windshield was practically a fetish and a sign of absence or the fact of a serious collision are slowly going away. If there are no other signs of a frontal accident, the rest of the iron and headlights are intact and original, and the airbags didn't fire, there's no need to worry about non-original glass. Of course, it's better if there are no repairs in the history at all. But even if there are, it is not always bad. Here, first of all, we can remember many hatchbacks and crossovers which suffer from the problem of a rusting rear door. If there is information that it was repainted on a far from new car, there is nothing wrong with this. It is better to eliminate corrosion in time than to wait for a rusty fringe or holes. The main thing is that the coloring was really cosmetic and there was no putty under the paint. Well, and of course it has to be quality, not over rust. Therefore, this point in the report is not a verdict, but a reason to see the car with your own eyes. The same can be said about any minor body repairs. It is almost impossible to find a car in a city of 1 million people that has been driving in its original paint for 10 years and has no scuffs, chips or scratches. And if they've been fixed before you, that's a good thing. What to look for in the repair history? Of course, the most interesting part is the detailing of the repair. Sometimes it looks abnormally long and scares you off with the sheer volume alone. In some cases, the volume should not be intimidating. In order to assess the repair as fully as possible, everything was included in its calculation, including all the little things like disposable plastic clips and painter's tape. As a result, the repair of the same bumper in the report can look not just impressive, but dramatic, listing the removal and installation of all the fittings, which can be a lot on a modern bumper. You look at such a report and realize that the bumper skirt has been painted and the work and consumables have been written on 2 sheets. Of course, if you don't read it, you get scared. And if you read it, it's funny. There is one more important position, which is not related to body repair, but is of no less interest. It is a visit to services. Large services, Euroauto, Fit and some others, which are partners of sites for selling cars with mileage, transmit information about the work done for reports. And there you can sometimes find interesting details. For example, on a 2010 diesel Mondeo with a mileage of 100,000 they changed the turbine cartridge. It seems that there is no mark that the mileage was curled, a smooth curved line. But we remember that all these reports work with information only from 2015. A turbo repair at 100k mileage is ridiculous. As is the mileage itself on an 11-year-old diesel car. In this case, such work may well be considered an indirect sign of stranded mileage. There can be many such signs. But to decipher them, it is necessary not only to have a detailed report at your disposal, but also to know something about the technique of a particular car. However, it can be the opposite situation with the mileage. The report says that it could have been rolled, but in fact it was not. It's just that one of the service technicians at the service station wrote down the mileage incorrectly and sent this data to the database. In this case, the report will say something like, "Be careful, the mileage may have been twisted, and the graph will look strange. 100,000, 110, 80, 120, 130. Of course, such a jump should attract attention. Most likely, it is just a mistake of the service station operator, and in a particular case, the report should not be believed. About mentality, the report is the case when you know less and sleep better. It is probably hated by resellers selling reconditioned junk. For the rest of us it can be useful, but only if it is properly understood. Minor body repair is not as scary as many people think, and sometimes it should please more than upset. However, there is another side to it. Many people fear it too much, and so the sale of a car with such a history can be delayed. This, of course, is bad, but there is no getting away from the mentality. Public opinion stands on the fact that any car aged at least up to 10 years must necessarily be in native paint. This, unfortunately, is not the case. You can't trust the reports 100% either. As I said above, the story of incorrect mileage is quite common. And the most dishonest resellers and scammers are also engaged in VIN substitution. For the report in the announcement indicate VIN from another car with a crystal clear history. Therefore, before buying you should check the VIN that you see on the car and the one that is indicated in the report. Sometimes they are completely different numbers. And, of course, the main tool when choosing a car on the secondary market is not the report, but your own eyes, diagnostic tools or consultation of specialists. That is, the report can act as a filter, but no more than that. And if you do not know how to use it, it does not help, but only complicates the already difficult choice, although in itself it is a very useful thing. But not everyone understands it. In conclusion, while body repairs on a used car may initially raise concerns, they can often indicate a well-maintained vehicle that has been cared for after an incident. Understanding the context of these repairs is crucial. For instance, if the damage was minor and professionally handled, it can actually enhance the car's longevity and performance. Always consider the quality of the repairs and the overall condition of the vehicle. By doing your research and seeking transparency in the vehicle's history, you can make an informed decision that may lead you to a great deal on a reliable car. Remember, a little due diligence can go a long way in ensuring you drive away with confidence.